Oh, this is the life. You know, you don't really have to put your trailer in when it gets too cold. There's so many advantages to camping in the cold season or the winter. There's no bugs and there's hardly any crowds. There's so many advantages, but then again, there's a few disadvantages. Like, there's lots of snow, so you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure you're protected and you've done your research before you go out. But I'd like to do a little video anyway, just to tell you some of my experiences with winter camping, and I hope you enjoy. So I guess the question always is, why would anybody want to camp in the winter? Because it's so quiet, it's so peaceful. If you work in the city a lot and you get stressed out, you need a place to relax. Going back to nature with me has always been one of my favorite pastimes. I come back just so refreshed and at peace. It's cold, yeah, it's not super cold. It all depends on where you're going. I mean, you've got to plan your route, but right now it's just below freezing. It's not really that cold. There's no wind. There's a river right beside me. It's just gorgeous. And why not take that opportunity if you have it? Enjoy it. Enjoy life. So one thing I need to talk about is water. Out here there's lots of it. There's water in the rivers and the snow, and there's water you need to use for cooking and for drinking. But water is a bit of a concern in the trailer. If you're camping below zero, water freezes, that's obvious. But if you have indoor water with plumbing, if you've got a water tank, I wouldn't use it if you're boondocking. I keep it empty, make sure there's no water in the plumbing or sink or anything else like that. Just keep everything dry. I use water I put it in this big jug, 6-gallon jug. As long as it's not super cold, that's usually okay. It also, if it gets super cold, I'd put it in the car. It's a little more insulated, especially if I'm going out. But the main concern is you understand how you're going to use water and how you're getting it. I'd be okay right now if I had no water containers or anything, because I have an open stream nearby me. And I can also melt snow. It's just not very efficient. If you do get your water from a stream, make sure it's a fast flowing stream. This one I'm pretty sure is a spring from the mountains to the east, so I'm pretty confident on this water. Never use stagnant water, even if you're boiling it. Okay, let's talk about power and boondocking. I'm right now running on 2 batteries. I've got one on the tongue of the trailer and one inside. I run on solar. Unfortunately, in the winter time, it's not really going to do that much. So I always have to make sure before I leave, if I'm only on like 3 or 4 days, then I should have enough, because I do conserve energy quite a bit. The second one is propane. I use that for heating. I use that for cooking. Definitely make sure your tank is full before you leave. It might be a good idea to have 2 tanks as well. I think somebody recommended to me, when you're out in the winter and cold camping, to get a gas generator. And it's certainly an option, and if you have one, then I would definitely consider it, especially if you run out of propane. I only have propane. I have solar. The solar's not really good in a situation like this. It's cloudy and the panels are covered with snow. But in regard to generators, I guess I had a bit of an experience in BC in the summer. I was at a beautiful, peaceful little lake Nobody else around. There's just two other campers. One had a generator on my left side, which he left on pretty well all afternoon. And the one on the right side, well, he left it on at night. And it was loud and it was noisy. And it just didn't appeal to me. So, and it takes up a lot more space. So if you have a generator and you got a big truck or something like that, then you're okay. But it wasn't for me. Sometimes it's a good idea to stay where there's ice fishing or skiing, simply because you know the roads are going to be plowed, and if you need supplies and facilities, they're available. And also, if something goes wrong, you're around other people. Out here in the wilderness, it's a little bit more of a challenge. You just have to be a little bit more careful. You can't always pick the weather in cold camping, so always be prepared for the worst. Actually, I had a couple of thoughts on boondocking with an Aliner and why an Aliner might be better than a straight trailer or other things. Obviously, its unique shape, the A frame, means you don't have to heat the corners, so it could be a little bit more conservative than heat. Certainly more conservative if you had a bigger trailer. But the other thing is to consider as an emergency. If I get bogged down in snow here, I can at least take my Jeep out of here and get help. If my whole vehicle was a trailer and I got stuck, I'm stuck. So there are certainly some advantages boondocking in the winter time, specifically with an Aliner. Those are two key notes that I had. So here's what I've got in my towing vehicle. A snow brush, scraper for the ice, a brush, also good for my solar panels because it extends. Just a cheap plastic shovel. This is just for light snow, just cleaning around the trailer and stuff. I've got a more heavy-duty metal shovel. This can dig into the soil, and it can also break the chunks of the ice off as well, so that comes in handy. Tire inflator. Something called the original tow truck in a box. It's basically something for traction, that if you get stuck in the snow, you put these under the wheels. Booster cables. Emergency kit. I've got water in a big thick jug, and I've got a ton of tools, including a tow rope. So that's basically the essentials you need. There's probably things you'll need yourself that I won't need, but this works for me at least. What I don't like about winter camping. One of my philosophies is to conserve energy, and when I'm in the trailer I do that as well. Right now it's below freezing, but I don't have the propane furnace on. I just really don't feel I need it. I'm warm. There's nothing that is going to freeze. There's some ice falling when that's what that noise was. Anything I need to freeze, I mean, that's the nice thing, is I'm conserving energy because I don't need to use the cooler right now because it's below freezing. But also when I sleep, I don't use much propane either. What I sleep on, I've got a sleeping bag. This is actually a Woods sleeping bag. This one is good to about minus 15 Celsius, which I think is about 5-10 degrees Fahrenheit. This does me well in most times. When it gets really cold, I have a mummy type sleeping bag which I bring out. This one goes to like minus 25, but rarely do I need it, but just in case I bring it anyway. When I sleep with the pillow underneath the sleeping bag, just because the pillow tends to get cold and my head gets cold, so I keep it underneath for padding. I also sometimes wear a toque at night because the top of my head gets cold, and a scarf around my face if I need it. But it's not that I never use propane, it's just that most of the time I don't need it. Usually late at night, probably about midnight and stuff like that, I start to turn on the propane. But come morning, after breakfast, I turn it off again. If you ski, cross country, downhill, if you go ice fishing, if you go snowshoeing, you got to think of the advantages of trying out a trailer during the winter. Cost of chalets and lodges can be outrageous, and everybody's in there if the weather is really good. So it's a little bit more inconvenient, sure, but you'll save money and you'll have your own space. And the other problem is during the winter time there's limited amount of daylight, so you don't want to spend your time driving out from the city and getting there, and you can only have an activity for 3 or 4 hours and you have to go back. So camping right near the location can have a big advantage that you should consider. I find camping off season lets you enjoy nature in its most tranquil, subtle, and delicate state. It's a beauty warm weather lovers may never experience. Boondocking in an Aliner is kind of a personal choice. You have to be pretty committed. I don't want to sell anybody on the idea if they're not very comfortable with it. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, and that's why you have to plan ahead. Where I'm here, if I get a foot of snow, I'm in trouble because there's probably not anybody around for 20 miles. So make a list before you go. Make sure you've got everything, all the emergency equipment, especially things if your vehicles get stuck in the snow. But that aside, it's beautiful and I love it. This is why I love winter camping. Well, that's it for this trip, but I'm sure I'll have more thoughts to share, so please watch out for the next installment on cold camping and my other videos as well. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I'm always open to hear your thoughts. Till next time, happy camping!